What's up everybody, how's it going? It's Berk, aka Dan's Great here, and welcome back to the Final Fantasy VII Attack Only Challenge. Things have been going pretty well so far, but we ended the last session with a pretty dramatic boss battle against Lost Number, where Yuffie had to perform something of a miracle to save us from that battle and allow us to make it through. So in this episode, as usual, we will continue along our way and we will see how far we can make it in this challenge. As always, thank you guys so much for the support. If you are continuing to enjoy the series, please remember to drop a like and show the series some love. And without much further ado, we will continue our adventure in the Final Fantasy VII Attack Only Challenge. Having beaten Lost Number, that means we can start to make our way back out of the Shinra Mansion. But before I do that, I will show you guys a rematch against Yin and Yang. I'll just quickly show you guys how it went because it was quite unique compared to the rest of our encounters so far. So immediately now, I'm having a look at, can I hit the other one first? Obviously, the first attempt made me realize that there are two separate targetable enemies here. And so I decided to go with the other one first, because obviously one of the biggest issues here was the spell casting. Not only does the animation take forever, but it's probably the most high damage situation that we have against an enemy. And you can see the magic casting side takes much more significant and, well, normal damage basically, so I can take it out much more quickly. But you can see everything just so long here, it takes an age to get anything done. After every move there's like this animation, and probably the most annoying random encounter of the entire run, possibly, but definitely up until this point it was the most annoying as well. But you can see I'm getting the damage done way more quickly this time around. Even to get to this point it's taken like 3 minutes so far, but eventually I did kill Yang, and as a result he used the suicide attack and it took out Barret. It does massive damage. But the difference here is that even though, again, the defense is high here, and it doesn't work very well for an attack-only challenge, now, because Yang's side is dead, we don't have to deal with any spells, and so even though, yes, it's going to take a long time and be grindy, the odds of us actually having a problem here are almost zero now, because the physical attacks are really not too bad. So I'm going to skip ahead here, but I just wanted to show you guys the rematch, and what happened when I decided to hit the magic casting side first instead. And so eventually I got Vincent into the party, and of course, because he is a long-range specialist, at this stage, I would have loved to have basically taken Cloud out of the party and just had Barret, Vincent, and Yuffie. But because Cloud, you know, he's the main man, he's got to be there, I had to make a sacrifice. And my assumption was that Vincent would have a higher, defensive and HP kind of ceiling than Yuffie, so I figured it might be a better idea to have Vincent in the party instead. So I swapped out Yuffie for Vincent, and well, even if it wasn't better, I was doing pretty well. And Vincent's so cool that I thought, you know, I got to have him in the party for a little while. So I put Vincent in the team, and I set myself up, and it was time to continue on towards Mount Nibble. As always, let's have a look at least a couple of the random encounters here. As you can imagine, things are still going to be relatively pedestrian here, at least when it comes to random encounters, barring certain specific types like the Yin and Yang that we faced. In general, they're definitely not too bad. So let's see Vincent in action for the first time. Got these floating flying guys. Again, I'm just keeping Barret berserked for now to maintain as much control as I can, but there's relatively little risk of anything major happening here. As always with this stuff, I'm kind of thinking ahead. I know that Materia Keeper is the next boss, and I know that Materia Keeper has some pretty deadly moves, and I'm like, okay, you know, can I basically blast out Materia Keeper before it uses its biggest moves, and can I survive that? So I wasn't too worried about random encounters, but I am showing you guys a couple of them as we continue along. Alongside the random encounters, I did pick up a rune blade, which was something that was a little bit more powerful for Cloud, and it does have the double materia growth, which again, for my HP pluses that I started to use now, was going to be useful. In general, as I've said, for the HP plus, I tried not to abuse it too much. I could have just hung around and farmed for a whole bunch of them, but I just took a few of them, you know, just give each character one. I think I've got like 3 or 4 of them in total, and I thought let's just roll with that and see how we go for now. If there comes a time when I get stuck, I can always buy some more and up my HP to kind of make up the gap. So we'll see how it goes for now, but I was happy with how things were going. And well, Cloud was all the way up to 1,729 HP now, thanks to the HP plus materia that we had. Then, of course, we get to the room with all of these pipes and the sliding, and you can see Materia Keeper just waiting there. Obviously, I did my best to avoid Materia Keeper right until the end, because obviously I'd have slightly better levels, I'd be more prepped, and so obviously, as always, I forgot which things led to what, like which tunnels to take, but I had like a guide with me, and so again I did make sure I got as many of the items as I could. So I picked up another all materia during that time, but then I encountered probably like the most interesting random encounter that you get here, which is the green dragon. So when this guy came up again, I was slightly worried, but I figured surely once again we'd still have enough firepower to take it down, but it came in with the flamethrower, 306. So in relative terms, yeah, I mean it's pretty powerful compared to the other options that we have here, but I still wasn't particularly worried. It's only attacking one character at a time and doing about 300 damage, so it would need so many attacks to truly put us in any kind of danger that it was only going to be a matter of time before we took it out as well. So nothing to worry about. Obviously a shame that we can't do things like, you know, enemy skill materia and that kind of thing, but oh well. But you can see obviously much chunkier than most of what we're facing here. You're not going to be able to take it out in just like 2 or 3 hits. But even for something as big and intimidating as this, if it concentrates its attacks on one person, it can probably kill one, but as you can see, for like the whole party, it's not a threat. Well, gave us a fire fang at least. And so especially once I realized that the biggest and most dangerous random encounter here is also not really much of a threat, I could continue my exploration, and not too soon after that, I was able to get to a part of the caves where I could get a weapon called Sniper CR for Vincent, which was going to be a little bit of an upgrade to what he already had. And so that was a welcome addition to the inventory. And so it took a little while, but I did clear out everything here, and I picked up all of the chests and items that I could, and it was finally time to face Materia Keeper. Now, in terms of being able to do enough damage, I wasn't too worried, but it was going to be a bit of a DPS race to see if my guys could get it done before those big moves that it can do that hit the whole party were going to cause a problem. So Trine is obviously the famous move, and the one that at this stage I wasn't sure how much damage Trine could do to the party. In terms of the setup, I gave Barret back the biggest amount of HP, and I knew that Materia Keeper could be poisoned. It's another one of those enemies that can be, and so I wanted to go for the added effect plus poison as well. You guys saw how clutch poison was for the Lost Number battle, and so of course any battle in which you can poison the boss is going to be very useful for us, so I wanted to make sure I made use of that. I gave Barret some lightning protection as well, just in case it helps. And so after that preparation, it was time to face off against Materia Keeper. 8,400 HP, so even more than Lost Number. And well, we struggled against Lost Number, but 574 is a very strong start, and Barret gets the poison on there immediately, which is very useful. But it counters with Trine. This is the move I feared. I do have some lightning protection, and I have Sadness and back row, and so thankfully it doesn't do a huge amount of damage. So it's looking good now. Getting that early poison in. The berserk damage from Cloud is also working well. And look at that cover work from Barret as well. So the team looks like it's functioning pretty well, and especially with that quick poison on there, that's really going to help get the HP down. Love to see Barret just putting in work. He's almost got 2,000 HP now, and that critical hit really worked well in our favor. So at the moment, things are looking good. If the Trine at the start did more like 500 to 700 kind of damage, I would have been really worried. But when I saw that the Trine did like 180 to Barret, I figured, okay, I've got this. It won't be able to take me down. And while thankfully it doesn't have defense as high as Lost Number when he's in the purple kind of phase. Now that cure was nice, healed back 1,000. I do always like it when enemies can heal themselves in these games. Can be annoying sometimes, but I think it's pretty cool here. Depending on the challenge, Materia Keeper is always one of the tougher bosses, but thankfully for this one, I think we're still doing well here. And the damage from Cloud just proving too much here. The poison damage and Berserk Cloud just really getting it done. Now, even if Cloud wasn't Berserked, it probably would have needed like 4 or 5 more hits, and I think we definitely had enough in the tank for that. And so with that, we took out Materia Keeper as well, one of the more notorious bosses in the game. And we received a pink counter Materia. Nice. So we've got, obviously, now we can kind of do like a cover and counter combination, potentially, as well. The HP plus Materia leveled up as well, got Barret all the way up to 2,100 HP now, so I can kind of swap and change them around, depending on who I think needs more HP. Definitely looked like the team was just continuing to get stronger and stronger as we go. And so once Materia Keeper was done, it was time to get back out into the open world and out towards Rocket Town. Rocket Town was a place that was going to have quite a bit of story, so a lot of it is going to get skipped in that respect. But there is one boss battle there, of course. And once we complete that boss battle and we finish the Rocket Town section, we will have even more freedom, as we will have the Tiny Bronco, and we'll be able to use that to explore places we previously couldn't go to. And again, as I'm discussing stuff here, I will show you guys anything that I brought along the way, because obviously, as always, there tends to be some things that you can buy from the shops that are going to increase your defenses or your attack or any of that kind of stuff. So stuff like the shotgun for Vincent, even though the sniper was good, I figured like the odds of me missing is still relatively low in most cases, so I figured I'll take the extra power. If we encounter something that's more like some kind of boss battle that's very evasive where I could use the sniper, then I'll definitely do that. But in general, I'll obviously almost always prefer power over accuracy, because accuracy generally has proved to be good enough in the run so far. Now, it is kind of funny, if you basically speak to this man enough times and kind of hear his story, then you will get a weapon called the Yoshiyuki. So let's have a look at this. Sword is used when an ally is down, but look at that power, 56, but the materia slots are very low, and at the moment I've got double materia growth and twice the slots, so I think the current weapon that I have is superior for what I need. Materia is still proving to be quite important in this challenge, and so I don't want to completely forget about the materia. Like, for example, stuff like HP plus, I need them to be growing as much as possible, and even things like cover materia, counter-attack materia, elemental materia, added effect materia, all of these are very useful to me. And so without much further ado, let's head towards the Tiny Bronco and Palmer. Now, Palmer was not someone that I was worried about, as I figured, come on, if I can beat Materia Keeper, there's almost no way Palmer's going to be able to do anything to me. Now, having said all of this, it was kind of cringe because Cloud missed his first attack. I mean, come on, it's literally a fat old man, and somehow he's able to miss. Like, that makes no sense. Palmer's evasion should be 0 for all intents and purposes, but fine. But you can see he's pretty slow as well, and so we're just completely just like destroying him here. His attack, again, he only hits one person at a time, and 280 damage at this stage on one character is basically nothing, and so we're just completely assaulting here, and it should only be a matter of time before he gets taken out. 6,000 HP is a decent chunk, but we're at the stage where like the 8 to 10,000 range for enemy HP is perfectly fine for us to handle, unless they have like particularly high defense or they hit extremely hard. So he even got poison for good measure. And so before long he pulls all of this shenanigans, which is always funny to watch. Like the scenes with Palmer and getting the Tiny Bronco is brilliant. I hope we get a fun remake of that in Rebirth or like the next game. Then that'd be really cool. We do grab his Edin coat armor as well, which is pretty cool. And with that, we are able to get going and unlock more of the world map. And at this stage, I wasn't quite sure what to do, and I figured, you know what, it might be fun to go to Wutai now and see what we can do. So I decided to go to Wutai and see if I could do the extra material related to that area. So instead of continuing like straight on with the story, I figured that's where I would go next. So let's see what happened in Wutai. This was pretty fun and interesting, so let's go. So she tells you it gets pretty tough past here and you should get ready. So let's see. We immediately encounter some soldiers, and let's see how this first encounter goes. Because this is more of an optional area, I think the odds of finding something a bit of a difficulty spike is a bit higher here. So that's one of the reasons I was curious to see, and I figured of course there's going to be some good things I can pick up from here as well as a result of doing this. So let's have a look at this first encounter. Yuffie's gone and left obviously Cloud and Barret on their own. That shifty Yuffie, huh? Straight in with a sleep attack, which I do not like. Yeah, that grenade has such a dramatic animation, and then it kind of does like 40 damage. So 3 attacks there from Barret, still alive. But the damage is pitiful, thankfully. 4 attacks, still alive. So it took 5 to take down one of these kind of low-level soldiers. But yeah, we will have to protect against sleep if we want to deal with them. Now, Cloud is missing quite a lot, which is a bit frustrating. But in general it has been rare enough that I'm not willing to really change anything at the moment about it. I guess they're just a little bit evasive if Barrett's missing too. I mean, this guy put up a good fight, fair play to him, but he's obviously going to die soon. There we go. And so now we have to get all the way to Wutai. Let's see if we can manage that with just these guys. And so yeah, one of the reasons, again, Wutai I found interesting was because all of our materia is gone now as well. And so we kind of have to get it done here. So I made sure I had the save before doing all of this in case I struggled too much with whatever's going on in Wutai. But I figured this would be a nice change up from what was going on in the story. So let's see the first encounter with no materia. 788. Yeah, I did change the weapon that Cloud is using because, well, I don't have materia anyway, so what's the point? So I went for absolute kind of highest power, and you can see the damage here, especially when it's attacking from behind. And so very, very powerful. No materia, no problem so far. But eventually I did make my way there, and as you can see, despite not having any materia, my level's generally good enough to keep me out of trouble. And so we could get to Wutai and begin the events there. So again, there's a lot of kind of running around, chasing people, lots of dialogue, all of that kind of stuff. I'll skip to what I consider interesting in Wutai, and we'll go from there. Now, I will say I love the interaction that we have with the Turks in Wutai. Like, being able to see that different side of them and the way they are when they're kind of not on duty, or like their current mission isn't to get you. Like, they seem like just a cool, like, weird bunch of people sometimes. And so it is always fun for me to run into them in Wutai as well. I've been talking about why I want to come to Wutai, but I think it's time for me to confess that this room is the real reason I want to come to Wutai. I mean, look at it. It's so cool. Imagine this in the remake. I did spend a fair bit of time looking around Wutai, exploring, chasing Yuffie down, and most of that gameplay-wise is not interesting enough to show, but I will show you guys the finale of the Don Corneo segment, because of course we took out Apps previously, a long time ago in the story, and he has a new pet for us to fight, so let me show you guys this particular fight at least, and then we'll go towards the main action in Wutai. So let's see how we dispatched this particular enemy. And again, no materia of course, let's see how we do. But the three of them attacking do about 1,000 damage, so the odds of us kind of all being KO'd within, I'd say, like 7, 8, 9 rounds is pretty low. Scorpion's tail comes in, and well, it's getting multiple attacks in, and it poisoned us, so that was a nice little move there. We'll see if it's going to be enough to cause us any trouble here. Aero 3 is also a big move, so definitely got some moves, and it's picking on Cloud here. 1029, that's the most damage we've basically taken from an attack that isn't like, you know, a self-destruct suicide move type thing. That's insane. And so that is like basically the only way that we're going to have any kind of problems here, is if one character gets picked on exclusively, then it's going to be an issue. But again, the odds of the entire party being taken out in this way before this enemy dies is still pretty low. I mean, we're doing okay. So Scorpion's tail's a double hit, which is a bit annoying, but you can see I've still got tons of HP to spare for Vincent and Barrett. Poor Cloud got picked on and got KO'd, but it's okay. We made it through. With that, I could put an end to Don Corneo's shenanigans and continue my adventures in Wutai. Now, one materia I did want from the special cat room was the HP absorb materia. I wasn't exactly sure like how I could utilize it in this challenge. Like, is it possible? I didn't really know, but I figured it's still worth getting just in case I can find some kind of combination where I can attack, use attack only, and heal at the same time. So I definitely picked it up. But for now, at least, I wasn't too sure if I could use it with the restrictions that I had. And so now, for me at least, there was one final thing left to do in Wutai, which is, of course, to see if Yuffie can go attack only and solo the Pagoda challenge. Now, this was going to be like one of the most legitimately difficult things that I tried. Up until now, it's been relatively smooth sailing. We've had a few close battles and that kind of thing. And so this was the first time where we were going to do something that was going to be truly quite difficult and potentially too difficult. Battle Square technically was the first thing that I couldn't do. Get all of like, I think get all like 8 battles done in a row. But in terms of something that isn't more of like a mini game type thing, this was the first one that I think was going to be genuinely quite tough. So let's see how Yuffie was going to get on in this particular challenge. Before heading in for the challenge, I had a quick look at the equipment shop, and there are some nice weapons here. So I brought the Murasame. And I also brought the Razor Ring for Yuffie because of the Materia slot. So even though it doesn't have as much power as the one that she currently has on, it has a Materia slot advantage, which, especially when she's soloing, I figured the Materia was going to be rather important. So I grabbed that for her, and it was time to head towards the pagoda to see if we could get it done. Now, since this one is going to be a solo challenge and it could be potentially quite difficult, this is one where it's worth looking through what I did with the Materia, because I felt like the Materia setup was going to be pretty important and a major determinant of whether I'd be successful or not here. And I changed to the Razor Ring as well to give her some more options. Now from there, of course, I had the Elemental, so I could protect myself from at least one of the elements. And then I had added status so that I could afflict a status element as well. Of course, was going to need some HP plus and some counter attack as well here. These are independent materials, and so counter attack I could just put on there and see how we go. I did try to see if I could add HP absorb with counter attack, but it doesn't work like this. So yeah, this was something I didn't research if it would work or not. It was just experimental, but unfortunately it didn't work. So there was definitely going to be some materia adjustment as I continued here, but I'm just showing you guys the process and what I was working with to start. Okay, so let's go and fight the first of our adversaries in the Wutai Pagoda. It's going to be Gorky. Now, Gorky has 3000 HP, which again, since we're solo and it can cast a barrier, was not exactly the best start. Now, thankfully, we still did 430 damage and got a poison as well. But we took 417, which is not good. So it was looking like it could be already quite nip and tuck for this first battle. Like, that's a ton of damage that we're receiving. And well, it doesn't look like we're getting particularly close to doing 3000 damage. It casts a regen on itself as well. And already I was thinking, yeah, this might not work so well. So let's see what happens here. But I'm just taking way too much damage. Even though I've got some HP plus materia to try and bridge the gap, it's looking like it's still a bit too much. I need to figure out a way to take less damage here if I can. Or get a bit more lucky with the RNG. So that Reflect did nothing and just wasted its own time, let Poison kick in even more. But it wasn't enough, and so I did get a game over. So as expected, this was going to be quite difficult. This is literally the first challenge and we already failed. So I had to go back to the drawing board and see what I could do. So for attempt 2, the only thing I really did was to give an elemental wind capability to Yuffie's weapon with Materia. I figured that might help me do a lot more damage and just basically overpower it and kill it before it could kill me. So let's give it another go and see what happens here. So it gets the first move, unfortunately. This time it beat me to the punch. And so we're already going to do less damage, but because I've got the wind elemental here, that was some significant damage there. So 3000, if I did 800 damage, that was already much, much better. So it was looking like, once again, Materia here to the rescue. And maybe the game knows, because I took the elemental gravity off. So perhaps the game knows that you have that protection on. Either I just got unlucky in my first attempt and just didn't use it, or it's kind of programmed to not use it if it knows you can nullify it. I'm not sure. But this attempt didn't go so well because I couldn't afflict poison either, and I got hit with the really damaging Demi move too. So even though I was doing more damage, I got killed again, which was... I felt like this was a bit of an RNG death, as opposed to just like a bad setup. And so as a result, I literally went straight back in for attempt number 3. Let's see if we can get it done. It's just a bit quicker than me. I changed around, I think, a couple of materia that gave me slightly less speed. But let's see if we're going to get the same set of moves. If it just does its physical attack and I can poison it, I should probably have enough. So that's about 1,300 damage. Once again, does Demi here, which is really bad. If I could survive 2 attacks from here, there's a chance I could get it done. But I do get the poison now. So regen does come in, but hopefully I can keep going here. I have done over 2,000 at this point. Let's see if it's going to be enough. It's very close, but not quite enough. So that Demi happening is really annoying me here. It's the main reason I'm dying. But not to be deterred, I went for it one more time. And this time, I think I got a better RNG to start with. So you can see there, 1,742. So there is a little bit of random variance with like the first move. And so already I'd done over 2,000 damage here, and I was 99% sure I'd win. So once again, it did turn into one of those where I knew I could get it done, I kind of just needed the right RNG to happen to make sure that I could. But if this was only the first level and I have to try and complete the pagoda, it was looking like it was probably impossible for me to do so at the moment. But I took the win here and moved up to level 2 to see what I could do next. The next enemy is Shake, and for Shake one of the main things I do is equip something that stops me from getting the Fury status that it can hit you with, because obviously I want to maintain the sadness in order to protect myself from the extra damage. And I believe that's the only difference that I made, because there's no elemental weaknesses for Shake. Okay, here we go. 4,000 HP, so the requirements are obviously going up pretty swiftly. 162, which I figured is not too bad, but let's see the damage. 295 is just not enough. 295 is going to take me so many hits that in this DPS race I'm going to lose. So it wasn't looking too good, but then I did hit a 301, but still I figured even with 300, if I get like the upper end of my random variance, it's not going to be enough here. So in the early going, it wasn't looking too good. It's doing about 10% of my HP, and so I'd have to do more than 10% obviously, but now that I poisoned it, I figured I have a better chance. But at the moment, I'd need to do about 400 HP damage per hit in order to have a chance of beating it, and at the moment that wasn't happening. But with poison damage, you can see 125 with the poison, and then obviously the 300 or so damage, it was just putting me in contention. But then Rage Bomber happened, which does 400 damage, and then it follows up with a cheap attack straight afterwards. It gives you no time. And so, yeah, it was looking like I couldn't win this DPS race. And then it spammed Rage Bomber again. Even though I dodged it, you can see the spam here. It's really annoying. And so, yeah. This one, honestly, was looking even worse than Gorky. I figured I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to do here, because it just looks like I'm flat out not strong enough to defeat this guy. So I wanted to give it another go. Obviously, the main thing I was looking for was to be able to poison pretty much immediately to give myself the best chance. And once again, if it doesn't use Rage Bomber as much, or if I'm able to dodge it a few times, then maybe, just maybe, I'd have enough in the tank to beat Shake. Alongside that, I decided to take a risk and just go back to Fury Ring, because I wanted to see if I could just do enough damage. And I figured one of the best ways to do that would be to give myself Berserk still. So it might mean that I take too much damage here, but I figured it was worth a shot just to see how it works with Berserk. Okay, round 2 versus Shake. Let's see how we do. Gets the first attack once again. It is the speedy one. But I came in with 436. There you go. So that was the damage that I needed. And it seems that I don't have Fury status, so I'm not taking more damage here. And so in that sense it's working. I just wasn't sure if the Fury would neutralize my sadness and make me basically take more damage, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. So this is much more like it. I wasn't getting the poison. I figured if I already had the poison at this point, it would have been done. Now I got a nice critical, but now the Rage Bomber starts coming in. But Yuffie's dodging the Rage Bomber quite well. It's impressive. And so it seems like on attempt 2 especially, I was thinking, okay, things could go my way once I'm berserked, because Rage Bomber is missing quite frequently. And so that's basically the one reprieve that I have. Now, it was frustrating that I didn't have the poison. I figured even in this attempt, if I had the poison, I think I would have won. But I think without the poison and this much Rage Bomber spamming, it was going to hit us eventually. And it hit us with a 228 afterwards as well. I think the sadness wore off after Rage Bomber. So that's the one that inflicts sadness. So I think that was just a bad RNG run. And so I went straight back in until I got the RNG that I wanted. But unfortunately, even with these tweaks, it seemed to me like it still wasn't quite enough to get it done, because losing the sadness was making me take even more damage, and it was just looking very, very tough. Then I finally did something which changed the entire complexion of this battle. And again, it's another reason why Materia is so crucial in this battle. But this is the kind of stuff that made it really fun for me, and that's why the Yuffie Wutai Pagoda was literally one of my favorite parts of the entire game with this challenge. And so I'll show you what I did to turn the tide in this one, because it was not looking very good. So what I did was I changed my added effect materia to time, because what you can do against this guy apparently is stop it. And I figured if that's what I could do, then that's obviously going to give me an advantage in battle. Now obviously it would have worked best if I could kind of stop and poison it or something. And so since poison wasn't working for me, even the times where I did poison it relatively early, it just wasn't getting the job done. I figured if I can afflict the stop status, then maybe that could be the key to beating Shake. So let's see this first attempt with added effect plus time materia and see if that's going to make a difference. So we're looking good, we're more than on track here, but it's the Rage Bomber phase that is a problem for us. And there you go, stop has hit. So I think it was 4 hits I needed for it to click. And then I get an extra move as a result, and it's still stopped. And it seems pretty stuck to me. So it's not one of these where when an enemy stopped and you hit it, it just automatically, like, the ATB starts working again. It was just stuck. And so I figured, okay, this works nicely for me. I will take that. And so Yuffie continued bringing on the damage here, and Shake was taken out. So there you go. That one adjustment ended up winning the day. So that's another one down in the Yuffie Pagoda Challenge. And well, this battle was very educational for me because it showed me the virtues of using added effect plus time and how much of a difference that can make to proceedings. So next up is going to be Chekhov, and I wanted to equip the gem ring to protect against paralyze and petrification. I had to look at my materials and I decided to keep them the same. The only thing I did was to put on the gem ring. So let's see how things went against Chekhov. Once again, the HP goes up. We started with 3,000 with Gorky, then 4,000 with Shake, and now we're up to 5,000 against Chekhov. So the requirements are growing, but as long as we have the right materia and the right setup, and the right RNG sometimes, it seems like we're still managing to get through the bosses in the Pagoda. So let's see how we do. 603 damage, and the stop status hits immediately. So we only need about 9 attacks to get this done, but the first one I guess you get like a critical hit, or like it did double damage for some reason, but from here is back down to 300 damage, which isn't great considering we have 5,000 HP to take out. So we need the stop to work for some time, and then when it runs out we need to reapply it to have a best chance of winning. So let's see if it's going to be enough to win first time against Chekhov. There you go, so stare down comes in. And it seems like nothing happens here. The gem ring is doing its job. It looks slow to me as well. I don't know if it's just slow or it's stop status or both. I think it's just slow animations. I'm not sure. Because I doubt it can afflict 2 statuses at the same time. But if it does, that's cool. I'll annotate that in. So that attack misses too. Poor showing so far from Chekhov, and it's been stopped again. So the stop, like the time materia, end up doing a pretty incredible job in the Pagoda. It's amazing what a difference it can make. And it's another one of those statuses that you assume that bosses would probably be immune to, and well, a lot of them are, but when they're not, it turns into a massive exploit. Chekhov recovers from being stopped again. But things are really going our way so far. Absorb does 199 damage, which is not something that's worrying to me. And then it gets stopped again. And so after the third stop as well, I figured it's not too hard to stop this enemy. And so within the space of a few more seconds, Yuffie got the job done once again. And she continues up another level of the Pagoda. And we get an ice ring, which could definitely be useful as well. It was the first one that we picked up. Let's keep moving onwards and upwards towards Staniv, the penultimate boss of the Pagoda. The nice thing about this is that Yuffie was getting some levels as well during this whole process, so she was catching up to Cloud and Barret a little bit too. And I equipped her with the Fury Ring. That came back into effect, and it was time to continue straight up towards Staniv. I didn't change my materia setup at all here. I just went for it. Let's see how it played out. We're up to 6,000 HP now, so Yuffie's really kind of punching above her weight here, considering that the highest HP we've encountered, I think, was like 8,400. Split between 3 characters. Having one character only trying to take down 6,000 is quite a feat. That's a nice number, but the first one always seems to do more damage. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but yeah, then it comes down to more normal damage. So we still need about like over 10 hits, but stop works once again. So stop seems to be the key to this Pagoda situation. Once I discovered that stop was working against multiple bosses in the Pagoda, it really changed the flow of everything. So once again, if you go back to the question of can you do this challenge with no materia? Yeah, I mean, a section like this, Yuffie's going to have to be so much more powerful. She'd have to be like a way, way higher level to just be able to tank all of these hits and to do the damage that she needs. So 215 is pretty strong, but provided that the stop continues to work here, then we shouldn't have too many problems against Stanev as well. Yeah, you can see, I mean, it seems to have a success rate of like 30% or so, which is definitely very useful, and a critical hit there too. So it was only a matter of time before Yuffie was going to finish the job here and set up the showdown against Godo. Now, given how the first attempt went, like all the way on the bottom tier, I didn't even think I'd make it this far, but Godo is a different beast compared to the rest of them, and he was going to prove to be much, much harder than what we faced so far. Because he's got so many different tricks up his sleeve, there's no one-size-fits-all kind of strategy for him that I could personally find. So let's see how we fared against basically the most difficult boss I've faced in this challenge so far. So for those of you who might not know, Godo is an enemy that has like 4 different faces, and each face has a different moveset. And so finding a setup that's going to exploit all of his weaknesses and cover all of them while just being able to do attack only, it was going to be very, very difficult. And he has 10,000 HP to boot. So yeah, it was going to be quite tough. It might be one of those I have to come back later when she's like 10 levels higher or something like that. So let's see the setup that I went for, and I'll show you guys the first attempt. Elemental wise, I decided to protect against lightning because Godo can use Trine, which is of course going to be a big problem. I got counter attack back into the mix as well to see if it would help. And I kept my added materia time combination to see if it was going to be enough for this one as well. Okay, here we go. Legit toughest battle of the game so far. Yuffie versus Godo, 10,000 HP. First attack comes in, 925. It looks good. Almost 10% of the HP is gone here. But it comes in with a drain, and obviously because it's just sadness and back row, it's mostly better against physical attacks. And so when stuff like this comes in, it's going to be a bit more painful. Like stuff that's magical is obviously going to work better for Godo. So let's see how this is going to play out. Beast Sword comes in. 189. Like the numbers aren't too bad so far, but because he has 10,000 HP, being able to take all of that out is going to prove to be very, very difficult with the amount of HP that we have, because we can't obviously heal mid-battle. Now, this particular face is an interesting one. Now, depending on how things go, again, it's a bit of an RNG situation. You can sometimes get healed by Godo. Now, I don't know the mechanics and the RNG stuff well enough to really explain how it all works. If you are curious and you want to look into it, there's really good resources on that. But just watch how the battle plays out for people that are like me, that are just more casual fans of the game that don't know it too well. And you'll see that depending on which face comes out and what the current conditions are, sometimes you can end up getting heals from the boss. So for now, things seem good, but the damage output is quite slow. You're going to need like 20-21 hits to make this happen. And you see sleep status there, so that's the problem. And well, it's not something that I think I can really protect against, because I want to have the like the added effect used as an offensive tool. So that was something that I wasn't really sure about. Beast Sword comes in, at least that wakes me up, which is good. He does have a decent amount of physical attacks too, and so I thought sleep might be something I just have to deal with for this one. But you can see stop isn't working at the moment. I haven't managed to make Godo stop moving at all in this run. Now, he's immune to stop, but he's not immune to slow. And at this stage, I wasn't sure if the time materia afflicts slow and stop, or just stop. But that heal is big, 1,221. Not only does he have 10,000 HP, he can use Drain to heal himself, and he can also use the Cure spell for 1,200. So realistically, you have to do more like 12,000-13,000 damage here to take this guy out. And well, based on the numbers that you're seeing right now, it doesn't look very possible to me. And already we were starting to run low on HP. I wish I could see how much damage I did. I wasn't tracking at the moment. I wanted to, but I did want to know how close I was. Like, did he still have like 7,000 HP? Or did I do like, you know, a good 6,000-7,000 damage here? But you can see the heal comes in again, and I just can't out damage that. There's just no set of moves that I have that can outdamage a heal like that. Then Trine comes in for good measure and does 319 damage, leaving me with 1 HP. Let's see what happens now. I get a second move, which surprised me. And then... boom. Game over. So it was a decent attempt. I hung in the battle for quite some time, but just the sheer amount of moves. The HP, the ability to heal, it can put you to sleep, it's immune to stop, and so I figured this one might be a step too far. But what I will do to not spend a huge amount of time on this, I will show you guys the final attempt that I had against this guy and my setup for it, and we'll see what happened with that one. So in general, the idea was largely the same, but this time I protected against poison, and my goal was to poison Godo as soon as possible. So by this point I was reaching the end of my patience. I was like, I fought him 5 or 6 times. I didn't even feel like I was that close at this point, and so I thought maybe it's better that I give up. So this was probably going to be one of the final attempts that I had against it before I moved on and came back when I had better levels. So a nice 608 to start. I did get the first turn, and it came in with Drain, which is one of the more, I guess, favourable moves that it has against me. Definitely prefer this to the likes of Trine, for example. And there you go, on the second hit I got the poison, and that was a counter, I guess, so I got 2 hits back to back here. So this was a very quick start, and then Bio came in, and well, because of my accessory, it did a big fat 0 damage. And so now we are off to the races. This was the best start that I've had by far in all of the attempts that I've had. B-Sword comes in, not too much we can do about this one. Just got to take that 190 on the chin. But you can see 300 damage coming in quite regularly. Fights back with a big Trine here. This is going to do almost 400 damage to me. There's not too much I can do about it. Well, 320. Still pretty good, but I mean, I've got 10,000 to take out. So counter-attack again, doing its job. So in terms of damage output, this is about as much as I can do, because if I try to give myself Berserk status, there's just too many like status effect dangers that I won't be able to protect against. I'd have to get very lucky with RNG to not see any poison attacks or any sleep, any like mini, any of that kind of stuff. But for now, things are going well. Drain comes in. Gonna drop to close to 600 HP here. But this, especially at this stage, I was like, this is about as good an attempt as I can have. I can't do much more than this. So if this doesn't work, then I'm pretty much going to give up here. So it comes in with a cure, 1,255, which is definitely not cool. But then another wasted attack with Bio, which is good. So all of these wasted attacks give a chance for that poison to eat away at the healing as well. And so already we're basically back to how we were before the heal happened. Demi, really painful here. And it puts me within basically 1 attack of dying. And now you're going to see the moment in which the battle was basically secured. At this particular moment in time, Godo decides to heal Yuffie instead. So briefly, in terms of the mechanics, I did look this up. Like I say, these were some of the battles I was looking into in advance, so that I could plan my materia and everything beforehand. Now, the face that does the curing spell, if Godo is below 40% HP, and more importantly, is attacked, then it will do a cure spell on itself. But the counterpoint to this, because it's Yuffie's dad, which I find a very interesting touch, like there's a little bit of a reprieve in there built into the AI. If Yuffie is below 20% of her own HP, then there is a chance that the cure will hit Yuffie instead, and that's exactly what happened in this particular battle. So it was very useful for me, and it was basically the difference between survival and death. And well, we're in mini status now, so we have no choice but to wait. Let's see what's going to happen here. Really fascinating battle, one of my favorites of the entire game. And there it is. So Yuffie managed to complete the Pagoda challenge all by herself, even though she was put into mini on the final boss battle against her dad. That was dope. One of my favorite segments of the game. So yeah, some really cool mechanics there for Godo, and it was the fact that I could poison him, be protected against poison myself because it used Bio multiple times, and then the fact that it has a healing mechanic that triggers under certain circumstances, which I've shared already, those were the keys to being able to defeat Godo. And so this was one that I was pretty proud of. I genuinely didn't think that I could complete it all when I first faced Gorky on the lowest level, and even after my first 2 or 3 attempts against Godo, it was looking very, very unlikely. But I did manage to pull through, and I wrapped things up in Wutai, and I got myself the Leviathan Materia to boot as well. So that's where I will end the Wutai segment, and now we will return to the main party / story and see where it takes us next. Once I was back on the Tiny Bronco, I did pay a quick visit to Bone Village so that I could grab a few extra pieces of equipment that I knew could be useful. I did make some money, of course, when I was in Wutai as well, which was helpful. After all of that, it was time to head back to Gold Saucer, where you see Dio, and he puts you up to a challenge and you have to see how long you can survive for. So let's have a quick look at how things went for this. I am skipping like random encounters and stuff I've taken along the way. At this stage they're all pretty easy. And so Cloud has 2,500 HP. Because I know it's going to be him, obviously I can focus my materia a bit more solidly on him. So we'll see if he has enough to win a few rounds here. But even 719 is not enough to take these guys out. And if from like the first kind of encounter we're already taking like 20-25% damage, it's probably not a good sign. Nonetheless, we took those guys out. I really wasn't very good at doing this whole like slowing down thing, but that one worked out okay. Down 5 levels I didn't mind too much. Obviously it hurt me in general, but 5 levels wasn't too bad. Now, let's see, Stone Stair comes in. And of course it hits. Let's see, do I have enough time to get this done? And well, once the battle's over, does it run out? I didn't remember at this point. 658 was not enough, so this was not looking good. But 2 attacks was enough, and so I figured, okay, maybe I can get this done. But I really didn't remember if the countdown carried through into the next battle. Let's hope it doesn't. Just in time. If I needed one more set of attacks, I probably couldn't have done it. This time around it says time times 30 damage, and unfortunately petrification does carry on through, and as a result of that I was already doomed from the start, so there wasn't too much more to see here. And of course I failed once again in Battle Square. This was the only thing in the game so far that I just could not overcome with the current restrictions that I had. I was defeated by Battle Square once again, but trust me, me and Battle Square are going to have some battles in this series, so I will be back and I will be trying to get my revenge on Battle Square in the future, but for now, it's time to move on. I won't show all of this in the name of time once again, but you can see just like in the background that I refuse to give up with Battle Square. I really want to get through each stage and get to the finale, but I gave it maybe like another half an hour, 40 minutes or so, and just kept repeating, trying different material combinations and stuff, but I just couldn't get it to work, and I just wasn't having like the luck of the roll that I wanted, and I wasn't able to slow down and manipulate the rolls enough. And in general, my setup just was not good enough to get the job done. So Battle Square remains undefeated in this challenge, but trust me, I will be coming back to Battle Square. But for now, I decided to continue the story because I knew what was up next. It is, of course, the Temple of the Ancients. So I think I will wrap this episode up here, my friends. And in the next one, we will be traveling to the Temple of the Ancients to experience the boss battles there and see if we can continue to make progress. Because once we're done with the events in the Temple of the Ancients and Forgotten Capital, then we're really starting to push towards more of the business end of the game, and things will be happening quite thick and fast, and we'll be facing increasingly more powerful enemies. So I will see you guys soon. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, anyone who is able to support on Patreon will be able to get early access to these episodes alongside many other perks depending on which tier you're in, and it helps the channel in a huge way. So I would really appreciate it if you gave the Patreon a shot. So I will see you guys for the next episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you are continuing to enjoy the series, and I will see you soon. Take care.